I bet you would never guess how I became interested in music and playing the violin, and it's probably not what you might think either. So keep on watching to find out how I started my beautiful heart musical journey and how you and your child can join in that same journey too. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Susan Stephenson, violinist and teacher here at my online studio, Beautiful Heart Musical Journey, where I teach Your Musical Baby classes and Suzuki violin lessons. And one of the goals that I have for this channel is to guide you and your child to become lifelong learners together and to develop a deeper relationship with each other through music. So be sure to subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss any future videos. Well, back in the day, children rarely were taken to symphony concerts or any other kind of concert. It was expensive, and at the time, people in general tended not to be as tolerant of children in those settings as they are now. And symphony children's concerts weren't as prevalent then either. And children typically weren't exposed to instrumental performances or instruction until later elementary school. And there certainly weren't those programs for babies and toddlers. The closest you probably came to that was what the 3 to 5-year-olds were learning in nursery school. You may or may not have had musical experiences when you were very young. In fact, if you didn't, it's probably kind of hard to wrap your head around the idea that a preschooler, baby, or toddler can even participate in a music class. If you did have childhood musical experiences, they probably didn't begin until you participated in a school program. Music teachers and people in general thought it was a waste of time to try to teach very young children to play an instrument. And they just assumed that it wasn't even possible. That is, until Japanese violinist and teacher Dr. Shinichi Suzuki took a group of very young violin students on a tour of the United States. They played difficult music beautifully, and audiences were enthralled with these young musicians. And of course, they all thought that they were little musical prodigies, except they weren't. And Dr. Suzuki even claimed that they were not. His teaching philosophy was based on the premise that every child can learn and develop high ability. He just happened to use the vehicle of playing the violin to prove his educational idea. So it turns out that I was exposed to violin playing when I was very young. However, it wasn't something my parents had planned. They just happened to watch a daily television program that featured a pianist who was the star of the show. However, it turns out that I was more interested in his violin playing brother. So I was seeing and hearing violin playing almost every day. But it would be another few years before I would actually see someone play violin up close and personal. When I was in 4th grade, the advanced string students gave a demonstration concert. Well, I was hooked. I went home and asked my parents if I could learn to play the violin. They were encouraging, generous parents, so we went to the local music store and they rented a violin for me to use in string class. Well, I was beyond excited. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was beginning to learn to play the violin at a time when every elementary, junior, and senior high school in our city had string programs. They were good programs, and there were some fantastic teachers running them. And I had one of those fantastic teachers from 4th to 9th grade. Her name was Laureen Gunderson. She had high standards and expected everyone to do their best. Students wanted to really work hard, learn the music, and perform it well. And I also studied violin privately with Mrs. Gunderson, and my playing improved even more. I had a good orchestra teacher in senior high school as well. And I went on to study privately with another teacher, Cecil Fashaw. She was a Juilliard graduate and really expected her students to practice and work hard. With these two teachers, I became accomplished enough to study violin at the university level. I went on to earn Bachelor and Master of Music degrees in violin performance. But as much as I loved to play, my real passion what turned out to be teaching violin. I had taught private lessons while I was in high school and as a college student. I really enjoyed the challenge of helping someone learn to play and to make music a part of their lives. And I had no idea when I first began learning to play the violin that I would be drawn to teaching others to play. I now know that Mrs. Gunderson and Miss Bashaw had set fine examples for me to follow. Next, my teaching experience would be taken to a new level when I was in graduate school. I had the opportunity to observe a teacher working with a 5-year-old student using the Suzuki method. Now remember, this was still at a time when students typically did not begin instrumental study until they were 9 or 10 years old. And if someone so young did play well, they were considered a prodigy. So this lesson was out of the ordinary. Well, I became very fascinated with how the teacher worked with this very young student. So I continued to delve into Dr. Suzuki's teaching philosophy of every child can learn and develop high ability. And the more I learned, the more I was convinced that this was what I wanted to do. It would be another 2 years before I would have the opportunity to begin my Suzuki teacher training. I was living in Washington, D.C. metro area at the time. And again, what I didn't realize was that this was a huge Suzuki community. And I was interacting with all the teachers at workshops and festivals. It was so valuable to me and my students. At this time, the Suzuki method was still fairly new to the U.S. Not all of my traditional teaching colleagues were convinced that very young children could or even should learn to play the violin. We Suzuki teachers spent a lot of time on the defense. What many failed to realize was that Dr. Suzuki's teaching philosophy was not just about learning to play violin. It was more about parents and their child learning together and developing a deep relationship through music. A little over 10 years later, I discovered Suzuki Early Childhood Education Teacher Training. This program was designed for parents and their babies and toddlers ages 0 to 3 years old. Now, talk about being on the defense. Colleagues were even less convinced that babies could do various kinds of musical activities. Once again, I had explained that it wasn't all about music. As the years passed, more teachers became familiar with the Suzuki method. We Suzuki teachers spent less time on defense and more time sharing teaching ideas. And it was exciting to play a part in making the Suzuki method an accepted way of teaching a musical instrument. Now, let's fast forward to 2017. My younger sister, also a violinist and Suzuki teacher, sent me a link to a website of a teacher who taught adults online. Heather Kay is an American violinist and teacher who moved to Bulgaria to take a position in a chamber orchestra. When she first went to Bulgaria, her young students back in the States begged her to continue teaching them online. So she did, and it was successful. This led her to niche down and teach adults online. Well, I decided to check it out. I wondered if taking lessons online would really work. Well, it turns out it does. Heather took me to a whole new level of playing the violin. I was so excited, again. However, I, myself, didn't even consider teaching online. To be honest, it just seemed a little bit scary. Now let's move to 2020. Bam, pandemic. Suddenly, everyone had to figure out how to do things online. Well, I decided that I was going to keep teaching violin even if it did seem scary to do it online. It was tricky at first. I had to rethink how to explain many things. And I was also forced to be even more observant because student actions were just harder to catch on a screen. Our Suzuki community of teachers was really on top of it, though. Online workshops and seminars began popping up to help teachers deal with teaching online and the technical difficulties. Now, teaching violin lessons online was one thing, but I had reservations about teaching your musical baby class online. Again, Suzuki colleagues to the rescue. I learned how to make modifications to some of the activities to make the class work online. It was definitely a mind shift though, but the last 4 years have proven that your musical baby class works online. In fact, I have babies who have never attended an in-person class, but the results have been the same. I see the parents and babies learning together. They are developing a deeper relationship through music. And I do believe Dr. Suzuki's goal for them has been accomplished, whether in person or online. I plan to continue teaching online for a variety of reasons. First, parents and children are safer from illness. A violin lesson or a baby class doesn't have to be the place where germs are spread around. Next, parents can save time, money, and wear and tear on their vehicles by not having to travel to lessons. In this way, we are all being more mindful of the carbon footprint we each leave on our planet. Finally, there is no traveling. Parents can spend extra precious time with their babies doing activities that really matter. I'd like to give you and your baby an opportunity to begin your beautiful heart musical journey together. You both can become lifelong learners together and develop a deeper relationship with each other through music. I'd like to invite you and your baby to observe an online Your Musical Baby class for free on any Saturday morning. Now, I know you're a busy parent, and I've tried to make it as easy as possible for you to attend. Simply use the busy parent link in the description below the video to sign up, and you will receive the details and the Zoom link to the class in an email. So sign up now, and you and your baby can begin your beautiful heart musical journey today. I hope to see you and your baby in the next Saturday class. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.